Hey guys, I'm Katie, and I'm here with my favorite co host, Ryan.
Hello.
And you're listening to The List, where we're watching IMDb's top 100 greatest movies of all time, and we're letting you know which ones are bucket list worthy movies. Today we are talking about number 79, The Green Mile. Kind of hard to believe we've already made it this far.
It's flying through.
It really is. And looking back at the first movies, it's also interesting to see how my perspective has changed on like viewing movies in general and how good those first movies we watched were.
Yeah, no, I think our perception will continue to change as we continue to view more high quality movies.
I agree. We're basically experts already, and we're only on number 79.
Pretty much.
That's all it took. Well, today we are talking about The Green Mile, which is based on Stephen King's 1996 novel of the same name. It stars Tom Hanks as a death row corrections officer during the U.S. Great Depression who witnesses supernatural events that occur after an enigmatic inmate, played by Michael Clark Duncan, is brought to his facility.
John Coffey
John Coffey.
is the character he plays,
Sounds like the drink, spelled
spelled
different though.
differently.
So I have some fun facts for this movie. And for anybody who hasn't seen the movie, there is a mouse in this movie and it does a lot of tricks and it's absolutely adorable. I'm not going to say it's the best part of the movie because it isn't, but it is a great part of the movie. And I turned to Ryan halfway through the movie and I was like, I'm about to ask you the stupidest question I've ever asked. Because I wasn't sure. It looked like a real mouse to me, but I was like, am I so stupid for thinking this is a real mouse and they didn't like CGI this mouse or something? But it turns out it was not a real mouse. It was 15 real mice.
15.
They
Wow.
trained 15 mice and each spent months being trained to do different
Do a
tricks.
specific trick.
Yeah, so
Wow.
in the movie, there is this mouse that could do like all sorts of crazy things. And I guess that there were 15 different mice who learned to do a specific
Trick.
trick. And so they would bring out
Can you
the
imagine
mouse
that's your job?
to train
You're like,
mice.
I'm going to train 15 mice for this
Yeah.
movie. That's my job.
I'm going to train this one to play fetch, which is what that
Hmm.
mouse did. That was crazy.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
I
Yeah, I
was
had the
very
same question. I
impressed.
was like, "Is this real? Like, is this CGI or like?" I figured some of it was real, but I didn't know how much.
Yeah.
So
It
none of it was
was
CGI.
not that I could find. If it was, it wasn't
Wow,
online for me to find.
that's pretty
All that I
cool.
could find was that they trained mice for months to be able to do different tricks. So
That's cool.
I thought that was pretty cool. And there's a part of the movie where the mouse, Mr. Jingles, right,
Hmm.
gets on Tom Hanks's jacket and Tom Hanks turns and wipes off his jacket afterwards. That was not scripted, I guess, that the mouse defecated on his jacket
Oh,
and he
really?
had to
I
like
didn't
wipe
even
it
notice.
off.
I thought he was just
Yeah.
like, "Ew, mouse."
Yeah, yeah.
That's funny.
All right. Fun fact number 2. Stephen King says it was the single most faithful adaptation to his work ever of all
Oh,
of
so
his books that have
he
been
thought it
turned
was
into
pretty true
movies.
to his novel. Then
Yeah. Of all the ones that have been turned into movies and TV shows, he says this is the most faithful. And I haven't read the book. I've read a couple of Stephen King novels. They're hard for me to read because he's heavy on the gore most of the time. But everything I saw online when I was researching afterwards on Reddit threads and stuff like that, people were saying that it is literally the book, that it was a very faithful adaptation.
I had no idea it was a Stephen King novel until the end credits, and I was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
this is a Stephen King book."
Yeah.
I had no clue.
I only knew because I got the two mixed up. I had read, you remember when I was talking to you about Close Encounters of the Third Kind and I said something about Stephen King? But
Hmm.
Steven Spielberg was the director, and I had like mixed the two, not mixed them up, but I had misplaced the like which one he was involved in. And it's The Green Mile. Um, but yeah, apparently it was very faithful adaptation. And also, speaking of Stephen King, he came onto set and sat in, because this movie is about inmates on death row, and there's an electric chair called Old Sparky, and Stephen King wanted to sit in Old Sparky, and he had them strap him into it and was immediately like, get me out of this right now. Like, he hated it. He couldn't handle it.
That's crazy.
Another fact is that John Coffey's bed was built shorter to make him look taller. So watching this movie, did you think he was actually as big as he was portrayed?
I figured they did some cinematography elements to make him look taller than he actually was.
Yeah.
However, I did some research as well.
Did you?
And the actor, Michael Clark Duncan, was actually 6'5",
yes,
315 pounds. So he was still a
big man.
huge dude.
But they make this big deal of
they
when
make
he
him
comes
even bigger in the movie.
that he's taller than one of the very tall guys who works on the row.
Yeah, Brutal.
Brutal, that's his name. They make this whole big deal that he's taller than Brutal, but actually he's not taller than the actor who plays Brutal. So another fact that I have further down the list, I'll go ahead and tell you now, is that they dug trenches for the other actors to stand in to make him look taller. Yeah. And another fact is that Shaq was considered to play John Coffey.
Oh, really? Just because he was so huge?
I don't know. I don't know why. But I don't know that it would have had
been interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. It would have.
Maybe Shaq could have done it. I don't know.
Did he have the emotional range for it? I don't know. Maybe.
I mean, maybe we should watch Kazam. And
Shazam? What is it? What is that movie called? But I know what you mean. Okay, so, and they're very comparable movies too, emotional depth-wise. Shazam and the Green Mile. Kazam? Whatever.
I think it's Kazam. Shazam is the new DC movie, right. I think.
Okay, so I'm going to move on to awards, past my well-researched facts into awards. This movie was nominated for Best Picture, Best Supporting Actor for Michael Clark Duncan, Best Sound, and Best Adapted Screenplay. Which one do you think it won?
I already know.
You know?
It didn't win any.
It was a trick question. It won none. Yeah. Which is so shocking to me.
Yeah, and I looked, I was like, what would have beat out this movie this year for best film? Yeah. And it was American Beauty.
Which I've never seen, but I did see that it won.
I have seen it, and it's a great film as well.
Do you think it deserved to beat The Green Mile?
They're both so different, but neck and neck. They're so good. Yeah, that would have been a tough one to judge.
When I was reading online, a lot of people were saying that if American Beauty would have lost, we would be like, I can't believe American Beauty lost. And since The Green Mile lost, people are like, I can't believe The Green Mile lost. Like, they were both such great movies that it's hard to believe.
I totally see that.
Yeah. So those are my fun facts. Those are the awards that were won. And now we can get down to business and talk about this movie. Okay, so I already did a little bit of a summary about what The Green Mile is about, but just to dive in a little more, it stars Tom Hanks as Paul Edgecombe, Michael Clark Duncan as John Coffey, and Tom Hanks works what he calls the Green Mile, and that's the stretch of jail that's for death row inmates.
It's the nickname they've given to death row, and it's
because they have to walk the green tile.
Green. Yeah.
So they walk this green tile to get to Old Sparky where they're executed. And the story opens with Tom Hanks. He has 2 or 3 death row prisoners already. He has a new person working on the Green Mile, Percy Wetmore, who is a huge pain in his butt. So he's dealing with that. He has a terrible bladder infection, which you don't understand why that's relevant, but it turns out to be extremely relevant. And enter John Coffey, who is brought in a very theatrical fashion. He's giant. They make a big deal of that. They let you know he's committed this really heinous crime, and you're expecting a super evil person, right? Who who has been accused of abducting and killing 2 small girls. So they set all this up, they bring him to death row, and then you meet John Coffey, who it turns out is the gentlest of gentle giants ever to exist. Mm-hmm. And that plants a seed of doubt in your mind as you watch the rest of the movie. I don't think John Coffey did this. And you watch, and I was really surprised by this movie. I was super taken aback by how this movie unfolded, and it wasn't at all what I was expecting, but I'd love to hear your perspective on the story. What did you think?
Yeah, I this took me in a direction I did not think this movie was going at all. In some ways. In some ways it met the expectations, a movie about life and death on death row.
Yeah.
But there's some twists and turns in there that totally caught me off guard.
Me too.
And just made the movie so much more interesting. And it was already really interesting even without that. So I thought it was great. Super good story. And then just to add in some of the little subplots, so good. I think this story is rich in symbolism and meaning, and it's just a beautiful, moving, touching story. Phenomenal.
What would you rate it?
Ooh, it's going to be way up there.
Yeah.
It's almost a perfect 10. I think it's going to be like a 9.7 for me.
Okay.
It's way up there.
And just for anybody listening who's wondering why we're maybe being a little vague, Ryan and I both were so caught off guard by this movie, and we don't want to take that experience from anyone else who maybe hasn't seen this movie. So we're going to be super, super vague about the story and some of the elements that happen until we get to the spoiler section at the end of this episode. So that's why we're very light on the details story-wise. And I also think this is going to be just an easy breezy agreement episode because I'm in full agreement with you. The story was spectacular. There are elements that are introduced that make the story go up, level up. But even at its core, were it just a movie about a compassionate warden who's running death row and is intent on giving every person there, regardless of what they've done, a dignified death, and to carry it out in a way that's respectful and to do his job without malice or judgment, is a very interesting story in and of itself. Then you introduce someone on death row who's probably innocent, and then you introduce even more elements, and it just goes from a good story to an outstanding story. I'm giving it a 9, more than a 9.5. I'm going to give it a 9.7 and say that story-wise, it is one of the best movies I've ever seen.
They did an excellent job. Like, how do you get somebody to care about prisoners on death row?
Yes.
Terrible, horrible people. But they found a way for me to actually emotionally connect with these people and actually care about their future, even though they don't really have one.
Right.
And so I thought that was done pretty awesome. Like that was masterful storytelling right there. Because otherwise, typically you would not care about, these people, and you definitely wouldn't want to emotionally connect with them. But they did a good job of
humanizing them,
making them human, and especially with the guards being respectful of their human nature and not treating them like complete garbage, except for maybe Percy, who is one of the prison guards.
Yeah.
So I thought that was done beautifully.
One way I think that they did that is they never really said what anybody did, unless they wanted you to hate them. And then you found out what they did. But for the characters they wanted you to have some sort of compassion for, you didn't know what they did. For example, Edward Delacroix, is one of the prisoners there, and you don't know what he did. And he has these moments where when Percy treats him like garbage, he lashes out, and you see a side of him that you don't see when the guards are respectful and handle him almost with kid gloves. It makes you, I mean, I don't think I felt like he shouldn't be there or I wanted him to get off death row or anything, but I didn't
No.
hate him so much that I was like, I can't wait to see him fry. You know what I mean? So they did a good job of leaving it kind of ambiguous, letting you know most of them deserve to be there. Besides John Coffey, who you questioned if he was supposed to be there or not. So yeah, I thought that was great, and that transitions us directly into acting, which I think goes hand in hand with the storytelling. What did you think?
Phenomenal actors, just all around. You know, Tom Hanks has always been a great character actor for many, many years. Michael Clark Duncan, excellent. The actor who played Percy, Doug. I'm blanking on his last name right now.
Doug Hutchison.
Doug Hutchison. I hated him so much.
Yeah.
Like, he was the worst of the worst. And this little weaselly.
Yeah.
You know,
yes.
He was infuriating, and I hated him so much. But that is a true testament of how good of an actor he was, because I hated him with that much passion.
Yeah.
Like, he played that character so good. And then there's just a slew of other really great actors, all the prison guards, the warden, Tom Hanks' wife. I mean, just all around phenomenal acting. I don't know. Did you look up to see who played the older character of Tom Hanks?
I did. I don't have his name written down. But
he was so great. Like, he the expressions on his face and his reactions to things in the very beginning of the movie got me sucked in almost immediately. He was awesome.
I agree. And they wanted Tom Hanks to play his older self, but it didn't look right. They had to cast it. They tried, but it didn't look right on camera. So what do you rate the acting?
I can't flaw any of it. I think it's going to be a 10.
Yeah.
I think it's a 10.
So for me, the acting...
Even Mr. Jingles. Amazing.
He was great. I mean, it did take 15 of him, but he was awesome.
And that's another testament to the story, is like, why should I care about a little tiny mouse?
And I did.
And like, he's a major character in this movie.
Yeah, he is.
It's just a testament on how great storytelling this is. It's really good.
So the acting was great for me as well. I have a lot of detailed stuff I want to talk about acting wise in the spoiler section. So for now, I'll just say that overall the acting was impeccable. There was no weak link. 3 people stood out to me, and that was Percy, John Coffey, and Paul Edgecombe. So Tom Hanks, Michael Clark Duncan, and Percy, who was played by Hutchison, was his last name.
Doug Hutchison.
They stood out to me as just the creme de la creme, like even better. In a pool of incredible actors, they were even more elevated to me. There were specific scenes that made me feel that way, like when Michael Clark Duncan first comes onto the scene and is immediately able to communicate that he's just a gentle giant man. Like the way he tells you so much about his character without saying a word, just how he reacts to the surroundings. And I just thought his acting was extraordinary. And then Tom Hanks, who is a normal, mundane guy doing his job in this movie, but does it so well. And then Percy, who plays the villain perfectly. they were the shining stars for me. But this is a 10 out of 10 acted movie for me as well. What did you think about the cinematography?
I don't really know what to say about it. It was just solid all around from what I was able to observe. It's filmed mostly from the perspective of Tom Hanks' character, the prison guard. You don't really see from the inside of the cells. I'm not really sure what to judge this. I think it's probably on par with most of your modern day movies of this caliber. So above average, 7.5.
I feel a little bit different about the cinematography. I felt like the tricks that they used to make John Coffey look so giant without you realizing they were tricks. I thought that was very well done. And the camera work does some of the emotional lifting in this movie to me. The close-up shots where nothing's being said, but the way that they're zeroing in on the character and letting you have that private moment with them, watching them react to what's happening is impactful to me. And I don't feel like it's a spoiler to say that at some point someone is electrocuted. I mean, you're watching a movie about death row inmates, and you do get to see an inmate in the electric chair early on in the movie. And that was filmed so brutally well. The way they captured how the guards have to control themselves in this scene, in this, moment of doing the worst part of their job, and the way the camera captured the last moments of the inmate dying in the electric chair. And I just thought, even though it's not necessarily artsy, I thought it did some emotional lifting and connected you with the characters. So I like, versus the dialogue, which was also great in this movie, but I feel like the cinematography also did some of that for you. And so I'm going to say cinematography for me is a 9.
Okay.
And what was the wow factor for you in this movie?
I know we said this for a bunch of films. It's a combination of multiple things. It's the acting, it's the story, it is the strong emotions that this movie's able to bring out, not only of just connection with characters, hate for characters, and then there's just kind of a beautiful message and theme that kind of goes along with it too. So I think the combination is the wow factor is a combination of all those things. It's a very emotional movie.
Yeah.
It will make you cry. It will make you laugh. It will make you rage. It takes you through the full gambit of emotions. So it's phenomenal. And I think I would give it 9 and 9.7 again.
I think the wow factor for me is the way this movie captures what it is to be human, and beyond even just emotions, the innate drive to not be alone, and how life is almost just not worth living if you don't have someone to share it with. And I think it does it in a couple of different ways in this movie, which is a hard thing to articulate and capture. And I think it was just beautiful in the way that it is just about humanity in general. And I loved it. Wow factor for me is a 10. Do you think this is a bucket list? Oh, do you think this is a top 100 movie?
Oh, for sure.
Okay.
And I was looking at some lists. It's like in the top 25.
I believe that.
So the only reason this is not higher up on the list is because this one is more based on awards that were won.
Oh, that sucks. Okay.
Yeah. So this is a phenomenal movie.
Yeah.
It's definitely a top 100 movie of all time.
Is it a bucket list movie for you?
Been asking myself that, and I don't know. I think,
What makes you wonder?
like, because is it a drop everything and have to go see it?
Okay.
That's the only thing. And I don't know what the answer to that is. I don't want to say no, but I don't want to say yes either. I'm on the border again. I think this is one of the best movies we've seen. For me to say it's not a bucket list movie almost sounds insane to me. I think it is, but
Okay.
it's not 100% clear for me. Is it a bucket list movie? But I think I'm going to say that it is.
Okay.
How about you?
It is a top 100 movie. Absolutely. And I have zero hesitation in saying it's a bucket list movie. There's no hesitation for me in that. It is a bucket list movie.
Okay. No, I
A little long, but I never
No.
felt like there was anything that should be taken out. So,
You need time to build
you do.
characters in this.
And I think for a
type of
book
movie.
to be adapted like
Yeah,
to
you
its
have to do it
core,
right.
you need time.
Mhm.
Yeah. Would you like to rate?
Sure. All right, so let me share my screen. Right. So, I still have Double Indemnity as number 1. And then I put Close Encounters of the Third Kind at 10, which I did say I think it probably should be a little bit higher. I've been thinking about where to put this movie, and it's going to go, I think it's going to number 1 slot for me. So I'm bringing everything down. Which Double Indemnity has stayed up there for a long time, but
It has. You kept Double
this
Indemnity up there forever.
I think just the amount of time that we've had to develop story and film has put this one above Double Indemnity.
I think so too.
Yeah. I think for the time that a Double Indemnity was made, it still stands the test of time even today. But I'm gonna put The Green Mile above it, which is crazy to me to still be on the border on whether this is
if it's a bucket list or not. I mean, I guess it just goes to show a movie can be a great movie and not a bucket list movie. Okay, so mine right now is Good Will Hunting at number 1 and Nashville at number 10. This is the best movie I've ever seen in my life. I've never seen a movie like this, a movie that made me feel this way, a movie that took me through so many emotions, a movie that made me care like this movie does. It just overall is what I think people mean when they say masterpiece when talking about film.
I think it's going to be up there for a very long time.
I think so too. I do hesitate
if it comes
a little
down at all.
on true.
You know?
I hesitate a little at putting it at number 1 because even though it is the best movie I've ever seen, I almost feel like Good Will Hunting touched me a little bit more, but I'm still putting The Green Mile up at number 1. So
Cool.
So overall, this is the first movie in a long time that I've watched and been like, no argument from me that it's 100% up there and 100% belongs there. Great movie. Let us know what you think about The Green Mile here on Spotify or on Ryan and Kat's list over on Instagram. You can DM us or reply to our story or leave a comment under one of our pictures. We would love to hear what you think about this movie. Even if your opinion is not shared with us, we love hearing what you think. So make sure to leave some feedback there. And we are going to skedaddle on into a small spoiler section if you would like to stick around for that. Spoiler. So The Green Mile is actually classified as an American fantasy movie. And I saw that when I bought the movie and it barely registered to me. And then we started watching and I realized why it's classified that way.
Yeah, I thought this was going to be straight historical fiction when we walked into it.
Me too. I did not expect any kind of fantastical element.
And then it took the turn where we learn that John Coffey has this miraculous gift to heal
and a
other
gift of
people.
empathy.
And he can feel others' pain and it seems like their love as well.
Yeah.
And we don't realize this until more than halfway into the film. We get an inkling of it, and it freaking blew my mind. I was like,
yeah, I had no
this,
inkling
this
whatsoever.
Story took a completely different turn than I thought it was going to go.
Yeah.
Completely. And it completely changed the movie. And so that's why we didn't purposely talk about that in the original section, because I think it was just such a important plot twist that we didn't want to spoil it for people who had not seen the movie.
I mean, it's an old movie, so most likely
probably.
But we managed to stay unspoiled, which is very surprising.
I've heard people tell me that this movie is fantastic for many, many years.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I just haven't got around to see it. And
right.
And I'm so glad that we did, because it was a really great movie.
So basically, the movie starts off as just a man who you start to believe is innocent on death row. And that's what you expect the movie to be until about halfway through, when John Coffey pulls Paul Edgecombe, Tom Hanks, over to the cell he's in and grabs him. And you think for a minute, oh crap, he's going to hurt him. But instead, he heals Paul's bladder infection and then spews out the pain. It's how he heals and internalizes it and then manages to get rid of it. So that's where you learn that he is more than just a great man. He has magical powers, I guess. And then you start to put two and two together on what happened. He's been accused of assaulting and killing two young girls, but after you see him heal Paul Edgecombe and say this phrase, he says, "I just wanted to take it back." It's his way of saying he wants to take people's pain and heal it. And that's what he kept saying about the little girls. So you realize that he found the little girls and wanted to heal them. You know he's innocent. And now this movie turns into, how are they going to get him off death row? And so I feel like you spend the whole movie expecting that at some point he's going to be saved, right? Proven innocent. But that's kind of another twist that happens, is that in the end, he's not.
Yeah. And it's the way it's done is in a satisfying way, because he eventually, Tom Hanks' character is really torn up with this, because he's like, I can only imagine what a death row prison guard has to go through. Rough. It's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
But then to have a man that you are 100% certain he's innocent, and he is 100% certain after he received some of the vision from John Coffey in another part of the film at the end. He's like, how do I live with myself if I send an innocent man to die? And he's ready to just break him out.
I'll open the door. I'll
like,
break you out right now.
And he gets some good advice from his wife and just says, what does John want? And John is just like, I'm ready to let go of all this pain. There's just too much hurt and suffering going on, and I've had enough, basically. And so it leaves you torn in a lot of ways, because you're happy that this guy has been released from all his pain, but at the same time, you're like, he's innocent.
Yeah, he didn't deserve to die.
So,
and not only does Paul have to walk him to be put in the electric chair, he's the one who has to say, all right, kill him. And so it's not...
And listen to all the
people saying...
people in the crowd,
you're disgusting, how could you?
Villainize this John Coffey character, even though he's innocent.
Yeah, and that's where some of the best acting happens to me. Dean, who's one of the prison guards, the prison guards really get to know John Coffey. They break him out to go heal the warden's very sick wife, and they watch him heal her. They know he is innocent. It's not just Paul who knows he's innocent, everyone there knows he is innocent.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all having to be complicit in the murder of an innocent man as well. And Dean, who's one of the prison guards, has an especially hard time with it, and it bends down to strap John Coffey's legs into old Sparky and is just sobbing because he knows he doesn't deserve to die, and he knows these people who are jeering at him are wrong. And Tom Hanks says to him, "Wipe your face before you stand up, Dean." And it's just heartbreaking to watch them, not only watch an innocent man die, but watch these 4 other men who know he's innocent have to be the ones to kill him because they feel like they have no other choice. And some of the best acting happens in those last scenes. Some of my favorite parts of John Coffey were when he gives this speech. Paul comes to him and says, "What do I do? What do I do? I know you are innocent. What do you want me to do?" And John gives this whole speech about how he's so tired and how he has nobody to go through life with. And he doesn't want to do that anymore. Life's not worth living when all there is pain and no one to help share that pain with you. And another...
I didn't get that.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't get that vibe.
He says, "What even is life if there's no one there to walk beside you?"
I don't remember
nobody
that
there to walk it with. It was heartbreaking to me to realize how lonely he felt, to have all these magical powers, to be able to heal the sick, but to have to do it all on your own. And it just was sad. And probably one of the other hardest scenes to watch was when they strap him in and they put the hood over him and he's like, "Please don't do it. I'm scared of the dark." That was really great acting to me too. And I did want to talk about 2 other scenes of Percy's that were a little spoilery. When Dell dies and he doesn't put the water on top of his head.
Mm-hmm.
Horrific, but so well acted that he is this degenerate of a man who wants to be evil but can't quite do it right, and then also can't take the consequences of the evil that he's producing. He wants Dell to suffer because he laughed at him, but then when he actually sees Dell suffer in the electric chair because there's no conductor, there's no water to conduct the electricity, he has to look away from it. And Tom Hanks is like, "Absolutely not. You will look at what you've done." And I thought that was just stellar acting. And great acting from Dell when Percy steps on the mouse and kills it, and Dell's just heartbroken. Percy crying after he pees on himself because he's so scared of Wild Bill. Just a lot of really great acting gems from Percy, as much as I hated him. But I think that's all I had to say about the spoiler section. I don't know if you had any other things you wanted to touch on.
Dell and Wild Bill, we didn't really talk about them much, but they were phenomenal actors as well.
Yeah.
I mean, and there's this whole dichotomy of Wild Bill. He's evil, and John Coffey is good.
Yeah.
Light and darkness, and how the Green Mile represents life.
Yeah.
Basically. And it's just a lovely story. It really is.
Do you think it was intentional that his name is John Coffey, JC?
Maybe.
Yeah.
So I was actually I did a little deep dive because they give him the, after he heals the warden's wife from her brain tumor, she gives him St. Christopher's medal to wear around his neck.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started looking up, I did a little deep dive on St. Christopher, and I was like, because I don't know
Yeah.
much about it. And supposedly St. Christopher was a huge man,
Yeah.
7'5", and he basically asked, like, what can I do to serve Christ or whatever? And they at the time he was told he should fast and pray, and he's like, I can't do that. And they were like, well, why don't you just help people, because you're so big, take them across this river where people are trying to cross and a bunch of people are dying. And basically he shuttles people back and forth across, and eventually becomes a martyr because he refuses to sacrifice to some pagan gods, and he becomes the patron saint of travelers because he helped this one. So I don't know if he is a Christ symbol in this movie, or if he's a symbol of Saint Christopher himself, because they do put the medal on him.
Maybe.
And
or maybe
so he's
Saint
there to
Christopher.
help travelers there in life.
True.
And because he does help a lot of them that are on the Green Mile there.
That's true.
So
I wonder.
I don't really know, and it probably doesn't really matter as much.
No,
because
I was just curious.
It's still a light and dark
representation
there.
I actually wonder if St. Christopher was the moment where we were meant to know that John Coffey wasn't going to make it then. If St. Christopher was given to him as a protection as he travels from this life to the next.
Maybe. Or, yeah, maybe. I think from the beginning, though, that
I didn't.
They're on death row. There's no
I thought he was going to make it.
escaping.
I thought he was going to make it out until his speech. Do you think that Paul's life being extended the way it was and having to see everyone he loved die was a punishment? Was it just an accident, or I don't know. He saw it as a punishment, though, like for not helping John Coffey live, for killing one of God's beings on earth.
I don't know. I don't know what the answer is to that.
Me either. I love that. Love being able to think about it and not know. Great movie.
Supposedly in the book, at the very end, Mr. Jingle dies.
I felt like it was ambiguous at the very end of the movie, too. I was like, is he dead? I couldn't tell.
But it definitely extends his life, and he's able to see.
Yeah.
And I think in a way, it helps him relate to John Coffey and know that he doesn't actually have to travel that painful road all alone. He did have somebody in the end who somewhat went through a portion of what he went through.
Yeah, for sure. Great movie.
Yep.
That's the end of our thoughts today. Thank you for sharing this movie with us. Follow us on Instagram. Tell us your thoughts. We want to hear them. See you next week.
We're watching 1940's The Grapes of Wrath.
Oh, no.
Don't be like that. It might be really good.
Yay.
I've seen the play a bunch of times, and I've never liked the play. So we'll see. Grapes of Wrath next week.
Grapes of Wrath. How about them grapes?